Welcome back, everyone, to Occult Archives.
where we uncover the mysteries, myths, and legends behind history's most feared books.
From mystical grimoires to ancient secrets too dangerous to be read. Today we are on episode 240, The House of the Hidden Places, Forbidden Rituals, Pyramid Mysteries, and the Occult Path of Egyptian Light.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah.
But, when you think about the Great Pyramid of Giza, that iconic structure out in the desert, it's easy to just think of it as like a huge old building.
Yeah, just a testament to some pretty incredible engineering.
Right, but what if it was something more? What if the ancient Egyptians thought of it not just as a building, but as the light?
Mm.
And what if their Book of the Dead, what they called the Book of the Master of the Hidden Places, was like fundamentally connected to this structure?
Like 2 volumes of the same story, kind of?
Right. And that's what we're gonna look at today. We had a request to explore The House of the Hidden Places, a book by Marsham Adams. And this book really unpacks this relationship between the Great Pyramid and Egyptian rituals and all this stuff about light and the hidden knowledge. We have excerpts from Adams's book where he very carefully explains all of these connections. And our goal today is to take these ideas, which are, very complex, very deep, and try to make them, clearer, more accessible. And I think we're going to find some really surprising insights into how the ancient Egyptians viewed death, the afterlife, and their place in the universe, the cosmos.
Yeah. Adam's main argument, as I see it at least, is really fascinating. He says that the chambers and passageways in the Great Pyramid, all these hidden spaces, they weren't just empty rooms. He thinks that there is a correspondence between these architectural features and the stages of spiritual growth that are laid out in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So he kind of sees the pyramid as a physical representation, right, of their religious doctrine and the steps to achieve eternal life, like their spiritual journey etched in stone.
So you're saying, he sees the pyramid as a blueprint
Yeah.
of their beliefs?
Yeah.
And he doesn't mean Masonic, literally built by,
No, of course not.
He's using that term, more figuratively. Okay, so their entire belief system encoded in this structure in stone. And he thinks this is hugely significant because he argues that, figuring this out, this ancient Egyptian belief system, it's not just some dusty old archaeology project. He says that it actually shows us how powerful beliefs can shape a whole society. And he even says that it can shed light on the origins and the structure of other ancient religions.
Right. It's like a window into the foundational beliefs of a civilization and how those beliefs, permeate every aspect of their lives. It's fascinating to consider, really.
Right. And it makes you think, how many other ancient monuments had meaning that's been lost to time? Right? We only see them as these big, impressive structures, but maybe they were more than that,
Oh, absolutely. Who knows what knowledge might be hidden right before our eyes?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this idea of the pyramid as the light. It's not like other ancient wonders, is it? Because the Hanging Gardens, the Colossus of Rhodes, the Pharaoh's Lighthouse, all these incredible things, they're gone. They don't exist anymore. But the pyramid, it's still there.
Undestroyed and indestructible.
Right, and Adams points this out. That's a big part of what sets it apart. And not just that it's still standing, but also it's filled with these hidden places, secret chambers that we don't really find in other buildings. It's it was designed to keep secrets.
Right. That's built right into the design, this intention to conceal things, to keep knowledge hidden. It's captivating, really.
Yeah. And there are so many unanswered questions. I mean, who built it? Exactly when was it built? And, what was the purpose? You go down this, a rabbit hole of theories, and Adams talks about a lot of them, a lot of different ideas. He says some people thought it was built by the Israelites when they were captive in Egypt, and then others thought it was maybe built before the flood by some king, Ibn Saluk. Even the biblical figure Melchizedek gets thrown in there. Everyone has an opinion on this, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for centuries, people have been trying to figure it out. There's still no real consensus on its origins or what it was truly meant for. It's this giant puzzle that, keeps drawing people in.
Right. It's everybody looks at this massive structure and they see the answers that they want to see reflected back at them.
It's a mirror to our own curiosity.
So okay. But getting back to this idea of the light, the Egyptians called the Great Pyramid Khut, and that means the light. And it's interesting how this connects with the Book of the Dead, or Pir Em Hu, which means entrance on light. And Adams is very specific here. He says this isn't just talking about like the physical light from the sun, the kind of light that we see.
Right. It's not just the absence of light, like when the sun sets.
Right. He's saying it's about the invisible light of the unseen world, the spiritual realm that's connected with Osiris, the god of the afterlife.
Yeah. The setting sun, in their beliefs, it represented this transition, right? From the physical world to the spiritual world. And this invisible light, it's like the spiritual illumination that awaits a righteous soul in the afterlife.
Okay, so light means something way deeper than what we normally think of. And Adams is saying that the whole religious doctrine of the ancient Egyptians, like their entire belief system, it's about this path that a soul takes, right? It's about spiritual growth, a journey that leads to this union with the Creator. And the ritual says that the Creator, like its very essence, is light. So the Creator is light, great Creator.
It's beautiful imagery, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is where Adams' argument, like this is where it all comes together. Because he's saying that the Great Pyramid, the way it's built, the way everything's arranged inside of it, it's a physical embodiment of this spiritual path that's described in their writings.
So it's not just like a picture of it or a representation of it. He's saying it's the thing itself.
Exactly. The pyramid, the masonry and the ritual, the text, this dual symbolism, Adams calls it. It's presenting these mysteries, the mysteries of creation, of the spiritual and the material. And like a core part of this whole journey was knowing Osiris in all of his like forms and manifestations. It wasn't just like knowing facts about Osiris.
It was a deeper understanding and intimate knowledge of the god.
Yeah, and that was seen as the key to spiritual power and to illumination. It was more than just head knowledge. It was like a personal connection.
Absolutely. The ancient Egyptians placed great emphasis on knowing the gods in all their aspects, all their names, all their places. It implied a truly comprehensive understanding of the divine.
Yeah. Okay, so this path to understanding, it wasn't just like handed to you. It was a process. Adams lays out these stages, the stages of spiritual ascent. You start as a postulant, then you become an initiate, and then an adept, a justified, an illuminate, and finally a master. And each one of these stages, they're all connected to a specific location in their cosmology. So not just a stage, but a place.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that, according to Adams, all of these localities are not only described in the ritual, but they're also like laid out in the pyramid. Like the hidden places in the pyramid, they line up with these stages.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's like each stage is a step on this cosmic ladder. And the pyramid, it's like this physical representation of that ladder, leading you upwards through these stages towards this final union with the divine.
Right. So the pyramid is like guiding you through these milestones, through these different levels. And this knowledge, this like profound spiritual knowledge, it wasn't meant for just anybody, right? The House of the Hidden Places, like they called it that for a reason. It was hidden. And Adam says that that desecrating these secrets, it was seen as like a serious offense, like a huge transgression.
Right. It wasn't something to be taken lightly. The ritual itself, it even has like warnings in it about letting uninitiated people see what's inside.
Yeah. So, and the pyramid itself, the structure, the way the entrances were hidden, the blocked passages, all that was like meant to keep people out. People who weren't supposed to be there.
Exactly. It speaks to a certain hierarchy of knowledge, doesn't it? Like this knowledge was sacred, reserved for those who were deemed worthy and had gone through the necessary preparation and initiation.
It makes you think about the role of the master of the secret, the Hirosheshta. They had this really difficult task. They had to find a way to explain these mysteries, the mysteries of God, but in a way that didn't like reveal too much.
Yeah, like they had to both reveal and conceal at the same time.
Right. They had to use symbols that would, that would last, that would endure. And Adams says that they chose to use, they used the celestial orbs, the stars and the planets, because their movements, they're seen as like unchanging. And so they're a good metaphor for eternal truth.
Right. They're like this cosmic clock, marking the passage of time. And their movements can be seen as representing these deeper eternal truths about the universe and our place within it.
So like the language of the pyramid and the ritual is the stars.
In a way, yes. Both the ritual and the pyramid, they trace this path of the soul through these shining worlds, and they measure spiritual progress through celestial movement.
Okay, and Adams gives examples, right? Like the Earth's orbit and the ancient Egyptian calendar, all that. He connects all of that to this. And then there's the pyramid's entrance. He says that the way the descending passage is oriented, it points to the pole star and to the horizon of the point of equinox. And he links this to the catechumen's approach to the double gate of the horizon, which is described in the 15th chapter of the rituals. Like, even just walking into the pyramid, it was a cosmic alignment.
Yeah, yeah, it's deliberate, it's symbolic. They didn't just like pick a random direction, you know. Everything was carefully planned and oriented to align with their cosmological understanding.
And think about how well hidden the entrance was, like for centuries. I mean, the revolving stone that hid the opening, it shows you how important this secrecy was to them. I mean, Al-Mamun, when he found the main passage, it was almost an accident.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, that such an important entrance could remain hidden for so long?
Yeah, it's like these hidden places were truly meant to stay hidden. And once you did find the entrance, you wouldn't just walk right in. It was this like descending passage going down into darkness. It wasn't just like going into the earth. It was symbolic. It was the catechumen
Yeah.
saying goodbye to the light, to the physical world. Just like it says in the 17th chapter of the ritual, I go from the gate of Tazer, the ascent. So they're like leaving the material world behind, getting ready for the spiritual journey.
It's a symbolic stripping away, shedding the old to embrace the new.
Right. Okay, so let's go inside the pyramid now. Like, let's really get into the analogies that Adams draws between the ritual and the structure of the pyramid. Like, there's the Chamber of the Moon, for example. Adams connects this to the Egyptian belief in Osiris's rebirth every month.
Yeah.
And the fact that this chamber was completely blocked up at some point. He says that that symbolizes the soul's rebirth in the afterlife.
Interesting. So the blocking and unblocking of this chamber, it's like a physical representation of the cycle of death and rebirth.
Right, exactly. Then there's the well of life. Adams says this represents the soul's descent and then its eventual reunion with the postulant.
Right.
And when they reunite, that's the beginning of initiation, and the soul gains strength for the next part, the ordeal.
So the well is like this in-between point, a place of both separation and reunification, necessary for the soul to move forward on its journey.
Yeah, like a test, right. And then we go deeper and we find the subterranean chamber, which Adams calls the place of the central fire. This chamber is carved right out of the bedrock, and it's the place where the initiate goes through a spiritual ordeal.
The imagery is very powerful, isn't it? This idea of a central fire deep within the earth, it speaks to a kind of like purification, a burning away of impurities.
Right, right. And there's a small passage leading from it that seems to go nowhere. It's like it adds to the mystery and maybe even like a little bit of fear to the whole thing.
Well, yeah, definitely. It hints at the unknown, the potential for annihilation even.
So we keep going, and we come to the granite gate, which is a hidden portcullis in the ceiling of a passage. And it was discovered by accident. Can you believe that? Like, they didn't even know it was there for centuries.
Yeah, it's incredible. A hidden door in a hidden place, like something out of an adventure novel.
And Adams compares this to the adept passing the lintel of justice in the ritual. It's like another threshold on this path, a step towards deeper mysteries.
Another layer of secrecy peeled back.
And once you get through this gate, you're in the upward inclined corridor. Adams says this is like the bottom part of the Hall of Truth from the ritual, the place where the adept has to justify themselves before the 42 judges. So like they're moving up, they're ascending, but it's also a judgment, right?
Right, right. They're moving towards a kind of reckoning, a test of their worthiness to continue.
At the top of this corridor, there's the landing place. And Adams calls this the gateway of the festival. And he says it's like this central point where all of the passages inside the pyramid meet up. He says it's like the crossing of the pure roads of life. And from there, there's a well shaft going down, and Adams says that leads to the roads of darkness. And then there's a path that goes to the Queen's chamber.
So it's like a crossroads, a point where choices are made and destiny is determined.
Yeah, exactly. Then beyond this point, there are the fields of Alu. And this was thought of as this beautiful country where the souls of the justified do good works for Osiris. And Adams connects this to these holes that were drilled into the ramps of the southern ascending passage.
Wow. So even these tiny details, these holes, they had meaning.
Yeah, Adams says that that everything has meaning, every little detail was deliberate, and it all connects back to their beliefs about the afterlife.
That's incredible. They really thought of everything.
And then there's the Queen's chamber. Adams says this is the place of the new birth, where the soul is given eternal life. And there's this niche in the chamber and 5 ascents leading to it. And Adam says this symbolizes the five senses, but like the regenerate senses, the senses in this new eternal life.
Okay, so it's like being born again, but with heightened spiritual senses.
Right. And then we get to the Grand Gallery. It's like this incredible space, right? And Adam says this is the top part of the Hall of Truth, or the Grand Lodge, or luminous chamber of the orbit. He really breaks down every little detail. He talks about these 28 ramps that have holes in them, this big block that looks like a throne or a dais for judgment, and this narrow tunnel that goes beyond that. There are 36 overlapping stones in the ceiling, and 7 overlapping stones on the wall of the dais, and this deep groove or orbit running along the whole length of the gallery.
Wow, it sounds like a really complex and layered space.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And Adam says every single one of these details, every single one, it's symbolic. It has meaning.
So, like, what about that groove, that orbit? What does he say about that?
He says it represents the Earth's place among the other planets. Like it's a physical representation of their cosmology, their view of the universe. And he connects it to the passage of the sun, which is a concept from their beliefs. And above the throne, they believed that that space was where the 7 great spirits lived, the spirits that were like the guardians of Osiris's coffin.
So the Grand Gallery, it was almost like this liminal space.
Yeah, like a boundary between worlds.
Mm.
And then after the Grand Gallery, there's the antechamber, the place of preparation. And in this chamber, Adam says there's a Masonic veil, which is it's something that makes you bow your head, like a physical thing that makes you show respect before you can go any further.
Yeah, it's like a reminder of the sacredness of this place and the humility required to enter the inner sanctum.
Exactly. And finally, we get to the king's chamber, the heart of the pyramid. This whole chamber is made out of granite. And Adam says that means it's like a house within a house, to emphasize how like special it is. And there's this open sarcophagus and ventilation shafts. And Adams concludes from this that the chamber wasn't actually like a tomb.
Not for a body, anyway.
Right. It wasn't for a dead pharaoh.
Yeah.
He says it was a place for the living. He calls it the place of the Orient, where Osiris wakes up.
Like a place of resurrection.
Yeah. And he says that it lines up with the house of glory in the ritual, the place that the illuminate approaches. And above the king's chamber, there's the Empyrean Gate, a bunch of spaces that were totally sealed off.
Yeah.
And Adam says that these represent like the deepest secrets, the most hidden places of all. And at the very top, there's this granite triangle. And he says this represents the divine trinity.
Okay, so it's like, the deeper you go into the pyramid, the closer you get to the ultimate truth, to the divine.
Right. And having taken us through this whole journey through the pyramid, Adams, he really drives home his main point. He says that the design of the pyramid, all this secrecy, all these hidden things, it shows that it wasn't just a tomb, Like it was way more than that.
That's a ritualistic purpose.
Right. He says that it's the house of a tomb, but it is not a closed, but an open tomb. It is the tomb not of a man, but of a god. Not of the dead, but of the risen. The tomb of Osiris, basically.
That's a powerful statement. It really reframes our understanding of what the pyramid might have meant to the ancient Egyptians.
And Adams says that this belief in Osiris, like this whole idea of resurrection and eternal life, it wasn't just some, abstract belief. It was woven into their society, It affected their calendar, their festivals, how they saw their pharaoh, how their priesthood worked, everything.
So their religion, their beliefs, they really were the foundation of their entire society.
Right. And he says that the pyramid, it's like this, indestructible record of their beliefs, like a book that can't be changed.
Yeah.
Because writing, you can always change that. But the pyramid, it's there. It's permanent. It's this, Masonic ritual of the whole doctrine of light, he says. And he also says this might be why their writings, like the Book of the Dead, they seem to have appeared in pieces over a long time. It's like the core message, it was already there in the pyramid. It didn't need to be written down.
Like the pyramid was the original text and the writings were just commentaries on it.
Right. And then he comes back to the title of the Book of the Master of the Hidden Places. Adam says that to really understand the Book of the Dead, you have to look at the hidden places in the pyramid.
It's like the key to unlocking the secrets of the text.
Right. He says that the later version of the Book of the Dead, which was written 3,000 years after the pyramid was built, that version needs to be understood in the context of the ritual in stone, the pyramid.
Like the pyramid was the original, and the later writings were just trying to recapture that original knowledge.
Right. And Adams ends this section by talking about the grand architect and the amazing thing they did. They created this structure that represents the immutable path of the just in characters of light, embodied in the immutable motions of the heavenly orbs. So they're connecting earth and heaven, like physically, with this building.
It's a fusion of the physical and the spiritual, the earthly and the cosmic.
Right. And it's not just like, mystical symbolism. Adams points out that, like, to even build something like this, the ancient Egyptian priests, they had to have some serious scientific knowledge. I mean, think about, like, the math they had to do to get everything to line up perfectly, Like the relationship between a circle's radius and its circumference, they knew about that.
Yeah, and the pyramid's orientation. I mean, it's aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. Some people even say that it was built to track the Earth's precession, the way the Earth's axis wobbles over time.
It's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes a really advanced understanding of astronomy to do that.
Yeah, they weren't just builders. They were astronomers, mathematicians, engineers. They were like the scientists of their time.
Yeah, yeah. And he mentions Flinders Petrie, who found that the pyramid's pavement, the area of the pavement at different levels, it corresponds to different calculations of the Earth's surface.
Seriously, like they built that into the design.
Apparently. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like they had this knowledge of the Earth that we're just now rediscovering. And their astronomy was really advanced too. Like they had a calendar based on the Earth's rotation. They knew about the sun's movement through the stars. They tracked the zodiac cycle, which is the rising of Sirius, the dog star.
It really makes you wonder how much we've lost, How much knowledge from the ancient world has been forgotten.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, we can't forget about the Nile River. I mean, that was like the center of their world, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just geography. It was a part of their religion, their cosmology.
The Nile was their lifeblood, literally and figuratively.
Right. Adams talks about this tradition that says the Egyptians came from the south, near the source of the Nile. And he says their astronomy seems to support that idea. Like their observations make more sense if you imagine them being made from that location. And he ties this to the sacred horizon of the ritual. It's like it all comes back to their beliefs.
It shows how deeply connected they were to their environment, how it shaped their entire worldview.
Right. And he even talks about like possible connections to other ancient cultures. Like he mentions the four rivers from the book of Genesis. And he wonders if there's a connection to the Nile and its sources. And then there's this really interesting thing he says about the 42 nomes of Egypt. The nomes are like the administrative districts. He says that they correspond to the 42 judges of the dead in the afterlife.
Oh, wow. So their geography was tied to their afterlife beliefs.
Right, like everything's connected. And he even says that the 42 exterior courses of the pyramid, the layers of stone, he says that they're connected to the double hall of truth in the afterlife. It's like this incredible system where everything has a double meaning.
They saw connections everywhere. It's a very holistic worldview, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So Adams talks about this thing called the sacred angle, which is also known as the golden angle. And it's a symbol that was used a lot by the Egyptians. It's connected to the gods Amen and Ta. And he even says that it appears in other cultures too, like the Phoenicians and in Asia Minor.
Interesting. So it could be a symbol with a shared meaning across different cultures?
Maybe. He says that the name angle appears in other places too, like Sicily. The name Sicily might have meant sons of the angle.
Yeah.
And there's a group in Greek mythology called the Laestrygons, which might mean pirates of the angle. And even the word sickle, the tool, he says that might be connected to this symbol too.
Wow, that's fascinating. So this angle could have been a really widespread and influential symbol.
Yeah, maybe. And Adams says that the petrosums, which are mentioned in the Bible, in Genesis, they were called the frontiers of the angle. And he suggests that maybe the angle between the branches of the Nile at Memphis, where the river splits, he says maybe that angle was important to them, like it was a key to how they saw the world. And it's here that Adams starts to talk about Freemasonry again. He says he has to use Masonic terms to describe like what he's seeing in the pyramid. He talks about the Grand Arch, the Purple Arch, the Royal Arch, all these terms. And it makes you wonder, right, like, is there a connection between ancient Egypt and modern Freemasonry?
Yeah, that's a question that's been around for a long time. And Adams doesn't really give a definitive answer, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He just kind of puts it out there,
Yeah.
which, is kind of frustrating, but also it keeps the mystery alive.
Right. So, okay. Adams talks a lot about how precise the measurements are in the pyramid. Like everything was calculated so carefully, He points out the angle of elevation, which is 51 degrees and 50 minutes.
That's a very specific angle.
It is. And it's not just in the Great Pyramid. It's in other pyramids too. And Adams says that this angle, this very specific angle, it might have been like a Masonic sign. like a way of showing that these different pyramids were all connected, part of the same tradition. And then he explains the math behind this angle. He talks about how it's related to a circle's radius and circumference.
It's like they embedded this fundamental geometric principle into the very structure of the pyramid.
Yeah. And then he talks about the cosmic unit of space, which is the Earth's polar axis.
Mhm.
And he says that this was like their standard measurement, their immutable rule, and that it guided their understanding of the sacred horizon. So they were basically using the Earth itself to measure things.
Wow, that's a pretty grand scale to be working on.
Yeah. And then he brings up this word, paramis, which he says means the edge. And he connects this to the casing stones, the stones that covered the outside of the pyramid. They were beveled, so they had an edge.
Okay, and what about the casing stones?
Well, he measured one, and it was exactly 25.025 British inches long. And get this, he says that length is almost exactly 1/10,000,000th of the Earth's polar radius.
Oh, are you serious? That's incredible.
Yeah. And he says that this measurement, this very specific measurement, was intentional. It was like a Masonic unit of cosmic length, he calls it. A way of connecting the pyramid to the size of the Earth.
Like a scale model of the planet built into the pyramid itself.
Right. And he points out that this same casing stone, it fits into the base of the pyramid 365.25 times.
Which is the number of days in the year.
Exactly. And it fits into the whole perimeter of the pyramid 1,461 times.
Which is the number of years in the zodiac cycle.
Right. So the pyramid is like this giant calendar encoding all these vast cycles of time in its dimensions.
Wow, it's like they were thinking on a completely different scale.
And he even talks about the different cubit lengths that the Egyptians used. He says that maybe they weren't just random, Maybe they represented different time periods connected to the moon and the Earth's movements, like the precession of perihelion, Yeah. And he even talks about the length of the Uraeus symbol in the ritual, which is 70 cubits. He says that length is proportional to the number of minutes in a day.
So they're connecting time and space, the celestial and the earthly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in. And then he talks about how the lengths of the passages and chambers in the pyramid, when you convert them to polar inches, they seem to line up with the radii of celestial cycles. So it's like the whole pyramid is a map of the cosmos, and your spiritual journey is like moving through these different cosmic scales.
It's an incredible concept, so vast and intricate.
Yeah, it is. So, okay, Adams walks us through this whole process, the initiation of the postulant. The goal is to achieve union with the uncreate light, Kaparo, who is also called Light Great Creator.